Third-party payments. I've just pulled sections of this that I thought were interesting or opportunistic. One of the key things, and I don't think there's anything new, but maybe something that when we turn the cameras off, CRA can comment on it, is they're very clear, and I think it's always been this way, but they're tightening it up. For both contractors, subcontractors, and payments to universities, the contract should be very clear that it's for SR&ED, or if it's SR&ED and something else, very clear what part is the SR&ED and what part's not the SR&ED. And this paper goes on to say that if it's mixed work and it's not clear how to segregate it, none of it's eligible for SR&ED. Okay? If you can't tell us what the SR&ED is, we'll make it easy. None of it's SR&ED. So they've kind of taken a little draconian measure there, but I could see that coming. And that would be advisable in subcontractors as well. When they read the contract, if it's a contract for goods and services, it's often hard to claim there's SR&ED. If it's specific about what the experimental components are, things like that, it makes the whole process a lot easier. And the other big thing that I saw on third-party payments that was interesting to me is it talks a little bit more, gives some guidance on donations in kind, or sorry, payments in kind, not a donation. So I can either get a donation to a university, get my deduction, fill out my Schedule 2, or, better yet, I could do a payment in kind for them to do research on my behalf, and I'm going to be much more tax advantaged than if I gave a donation. I'm going to get the deduction, and I'm going to get all the SR&ED credits on it on the flip side. So I'm going to get about 60, 70% of that back, depending if I'm in Ontario or Quebec, and what kind of taxpayer I am. So it's saying here that the donation in kind is good. You have to value the property. I've seen clients who had like old chemicals inventory they couldn't get rid of. And they said, oh, we'll use it as a payment in kind to the university for research, and we'll value it at retail value. And CRA accepted that. I don't know, is that fair or not? It just says you have to be able to establish the value of it. Fair market value is what it's worth. Fair market value is kind of a gray area when you're in things. It should be unconditional. And one other thing that really grabbed me is it talks about the cost of a building. So I always tell people, well, unless you're Bell Northern Research and you spend $1 billion to build a clean room, which as far as I'm concerned, there's only one prescribed special purpose building in all of Canada. You can look in the Act and you have to have a clean room with maximum amount of dust particles, microns per cubic meter. Long story short, a building like that costs a minimum $1 billion and you need pre-approval. Probably none of your clients have one, or if you did, you'd know about it. Here it's saying, in general, claimant cannot claim the cost for a building for SR&ED unless it's a prescribed special purpose building. And we know there's only one of those so far approved in all of Canada. However, this is what opened my eyes, there are exceptions where third-party payments to certain recipient entities may be used to acquire a building or leasehold interest, to pay an amount in respect of or rental expense as long as the building is committed solely to SR&ED in Canada. I'm like, so if I buy a building, I can't claim it. If I buy a building and give it to a university and do all the same stuff, I can get a full credit on that. This is what I'm reading in here. So, like I said, I don't know really what to think about that, but it sounds like a really interesting loophole. I'd like to learn more. It's a draft paper, but saying, wow, I got to find out more about this because I think there could be a lot of money here. Okay, my other big comment on the third-party payments, and I've actually made this comment to Ottawa, is that with harmonization, I'm finding it very confusing. There's a list of what they call third-party approved entities, CRA, which are your universities, a couple hospitals. And then I go, so I have clients at Mount Sinai Hospital. If I look at the Ontario OBRI, Mount Sinai Hospital has two entities that are both approved for the Business Research Institute credit. Any payments you make to them are deemed university payments. You would assume that since they're already approved at the provincial level, they would be approved at the federal level too, right? No, they're not. So the criteria for applying is pretty much identical, and yet if you look, there's all kinds of entities that are approved at the provincial level and not at the federal level. So how do you handle that? I asked Ottawa and they said, well, we're harmonizing, there shouldn't be any differences soon. So I think there's going to have to be some major changes because right now it's very discontinuous. Do I claim a guy as a third party? I don't know. Hey, the province says he is, but the feds say he's not. What do I do? Do I let him apply? I'm not even sure what to do in those situations. Okay? But I think the key thing is, if it's harmonized, it should be the same. If it's approved for Ontario, it should be approved federal and vice versa. It shouldn't be discontinuous that you're a third-party entity for Ontario SR&ED purposes, but not federal. I don't understand that, especially when the criteria are identical.